So welcome, good morning. I'm glad that you guys are here with us today, and I'm glad that in spite of the gross weather, you decided to be here. It's going to be great. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I know we did. It was actually, Heather and I were talking yesterday, it seems like this is the first year that we've actually felt like we had a break, that there was a little bit of a vacation because she works in retail, and usually, when Black Friday started happening on Thursday, it was really like eat or go to bed, and we get her up and she heads out, and like we don't see her again until like Tuesday or something. But this year it was actually, we had a little bit of a reprieve. We were able to hang out with family and actually see each other and all this good stuff. And so hopefully your time with your family and friends was good as well. And this kind of kicks off here at the end of the year, like it's just nothing but holiday, right? We go from Halloween, which we don't really count as a holiday, but we start there, and it's like we start eating the candy. We start, we start engaging in all these different weird activities and stuff, and then it seems like we skip over Thanksgiving and we're already setting up Christmas, right? The day after Halloween, we set up for Christmas, and it's crazy. But this leads us into this time of celebration. We go from Thanksgiving then into Christmas, and then we have the New Year. And man, it just seems like we're just kind of constantly going. And, it's a joyful time, right? It's a joyful time. It's exciting. It's also frustrating. And it's stressful. But it really is supposed to be something amazing for us. And so as we've kind of wrapped up the book of Ruth, and we've kind of gotten through Thanksgiving, and we're all just kind of, we're still kind of getting over that time of feasting. We're kind of moving into this hectic season of Christmas. And with that, we're going to start a new series today. And it's probably going to be a little different than what you're used to for Christmas series, which you guys know we don't normally do things the way everybody else does sometimes. So we kind of process through Ruth a little differently. We're going to process through this Christmas series a little differently, and it might be surprising, maybe not, maybe it'll be something great. I hope it is, I pray that it is, and I do feel like at the end of the day that this is where God is leading us in this discussion, and so hopefully as we are digging into things, He will speak to your heart and your mind as well. So today as you came in, you received a piece of paper. If you didn't get one, let us know. We've got some more back there. But when you came in, your piece of paper, you'll notice that you have, at the top of it, you have a wish list and a need list. Right? A wish list and a need list. And I want to encourage you before we really, I don't want to take too much time here on this thing, but I want you to just go ahead and think, like, okay, so what's one thing? What's one thing that is really, truly, sincerely, don't put, like, I want a new yacht. Like, I mean, it may be on your wish list, but let's be realistic, okay? So, like, what's realistically on your wish list, all right? So maybe list one or two things there real quick. And then there beside it, you've got your needs list. And I want to encourage you to take a second to kind of maybe write down one or two things that you need, that maybe wouldn't necessarily make your wish list, but it definitely is on your need list, right? It's on your need list. And so as you're kind of processing through that, I know for some of you, and maybe not, but for some of you, you've already made out your lists, you've already checked them twice, you've done all your shopping, and outside of maybe one or two final things that you need to pick up, you're done, right? You're done. I know people who used to, like, they would get up Black Friday, they had their list, and they would go, and they would knock it all out, and they were done, like, literally. In an 8 or 10 hour span of time, they hit everything they needed to hit, they bought everything they needed to buy, and they were done. It's never been my situation. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. But then there are others of us, maybe some of you, who are like, you know what? Forget the list. I'm not writing anything down. I'm just going to go out Christmas Eve, about 2 hours before stores close, and I'm just going to wing it. Whatever is on final sale, like it is the deepest discounts, it's like an extra 75% off to 75% off, plus if you open the card, you get 10% off, right? So, like, you're getting stuff where they're having to pay you to take it out of the store. So maybe that's you. Maybe you don't make a list. Maybe me putting this list in front of you is like, wait a minute, it ain't my style, I don't do this. It's not what I do. And some of you are now thinking, okay, so I've got my list. I know what my kids want. I know what my spouse wants. And I also know that I have people in my life who want things that they're going to be lucky if they get a piece of coal from me. Because that's just how bad they've been this year. Don't be elbowing your spouses. I'm glad that y'all are sitting apart because that's a little room there. They'll be lucky if they get anything, maybe a lump of coal, maybe. I know in our house, and we've done this for a few years, but the kids, since they've been old enough, we just like, hey, give us a list, write down some things that you want, whatever, and so we get that, and of course we sit down and we're like, okay, so how are we going to do this without taking out a second mortgage? And as they get older, and maybe you guys have seen this, as they get older, it goes from like, you can get away with one or two kind of things, and they're kind of cheap, and now it's like, when did we get into the AirPods? And when do we get into the $1,000 devices as I really want this. We all have that, right? I mean, we all, like, as we get older, our tastes change, and we have champagne taste and we're living on a beer budget. Can I say that? But our wish list always has crazy stuff on it, right? I mean, even as a kid making a wish list, right? You always asked for that. You always ask for something big. It's like you always, you got to ask for the big thing. It's the big splurge. And even now, when I was a kid, my wish list would look like, video games, maybe a skateboard, and Mom and Dad are here, so they can probably give you a little more insight onto what my wish list looked like. But, it's like remote control cars and these different things. My wish list always had fun stuff. It was always fun. And as I've entered into adulthood, again, like I said, it's shifted. It's not the $20 remote control car. Now, my wish list is that new iPhone that has like 10,000 cameras on the back. My wish list might be, that really special pair of shoes. They're just kind of off the wall. They're making a little bit expensive. Or maybe it's the new TV for my living room, right? My wish list has got this on it for sure. Next time y'all come over, we will have a 1,000-inch TV. No, we won't. But my wish list is always it's always kind of been something fun, right? And the older I get, it's still kind of there. But now it's kind of starting to shift. As a kid, we always had those things that we needed, right? But we never wrote down, I need new socks. I need a new jacket. I need new underwear because these are not... They're holy. I can wear them to church because they're so holy. Anyway, bad joke, sorry. But our wish list as a kid versus now as an adult, it's kind of shifted. Like we've started putting some of those things that we need, right? And I don't know about you, but as a kid, my wish list, I said, I've always had the fun stuff. And probably everybody, if we'll raise your hands, there's always that one box. There's that one thing under the tree, and you're just like, if we get to open one present the day before, I don't want to choose this one box. And it's the one that has the underwear and the socks and, you don't want to pick that box. Like, so you're walking around like shaking everything a couple days beforehand, trying to figure out, hey, I'm going to avoid that box. My parents are here. Let me just tell you. So we would do that, we'd kind of shake stuff and try to figure out what we were getting. And this one year, I used to wear ties. It's hard to imagine, but I used to wear ties. I wore them to church. And I had so now I do the crazy shoes. I used to do the crazy ties. So I had like manatees. I had all kind of crazy stuff. But not only did I wear them to church, but I also worked in retail. And I had to wear a tie, look nice and presentable to use something nice and presentable. And so, of course, everybody, my parents knew that I love these crazy ties. And so one year, my dad got this tie and he wrapped it around a can of corn. Because we go around shaking stuff, we're trying to figure out, like, what are we getting, what are we not getting? You may not remember this, but he wrapped a tie around a can of corn. And I'm sitting here looking at, like, what is this? Like, there's nothing that I asked for that would come like this, that weighs this, like this is what in the world? And of course, that I was curious, but there was too iffy. So I'm not going to pick that if I get to pick one thing. That's not going to be it. But I'm kind of curious as to what that is. So I open it up. And of course it's like it weighs a ton. It's a tie. Ah, nice. Okay, and Cream corn. I've got lunch today too. So, but it's always, we have these things where it's like, we have our wants, we have our wish list, and we have our needs. And sometimes what's on our wish list is not what we need. And sometimes it's fun for us, like we did this, it's fun for us to do something that we need, to do it in a fun way. But typically we're not thinking about these things that we need. We're pretty much just wanting the things that we wish we could get anytime, right? We kind of save it. We're like, oh, I'm going to wait, put this on my Christmas list. So as we're thinking about this, and we start looking at our list, and then as we're shopping, as we're thinking about things, we're like, okay, so now what did I not put on my list? What did I forget about? So we're talking about the kids. So what did they ask for that we didn't make it onto the list? What was that one thing? There's something I just can't remember exactly what was that. We've missed something. And then of course on the flip side of that, when we finished and we've got you've tucked your presents all everywhere, that you tried to hide them, like Clark Griswold, like up in the attic, and you find Mother's Day gifts and everything else like up in your hiding space. But you're tucking things away, and so as you're looking at your list, you're like, wait a minute, did I actually buy that? Did I buy that thing? Did I miss it? Did I miss the thing that was on the list? We miss things, right? We miss things. And as we kind of dig into this series, I want us to kind of think about that. What is it? What is it that we're missing? What's missing from our list? What's missing from the world's list? What in the world are we missing today? Or maybe we should ask it this way. What does everyone need that's not on the list? What is the world missing today? And as we process this, I think what we're going to find is that the thing that's missing is the thing that we need the most, but we never actually put on our list. And in fact, as we were looking at, the only gift you really need. Today, and through this series, we're going to be looking at the only gift that you really need. And over the next few weeks, as we move towards Christmas, we're going to focus on the gift that God has given us. This extraordinary, right? Extraordinary God. This extraordinary gift, this amazing, extremely remarkable gift that we all need. That every human on the planet needs this gift. If you were born into this world, you need this gift. You need to accept this gift. This gift is so great, it's so miraculous, and if we would just all accept it, it would change our lives forever. It has the ability to heal our relationships, to make our marriages stronger, to actually bring peace and joy into the world. And God gave us this gift on the very first Christmas. Now, the gift may not be what you're thinking. It may not be what you're thinking. And we're actually going to find this gift. We're going to find some evidence of this gift. In John. We're going to open up John's letter. It's found in the New Testament, in our modern day New Testament. This is John giving us his account of his life and times with Christ, having this account of who Jesus is and seeing all these different things. But today we're going to look at John's letter, and we're going to pick up in chapter 1. We're going to kind of skip ahead to verse 14, and you've got this in your notes. But starting with John 1, verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed His glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Now, we could spend the balance of our time today breaking this one verse apart. We could tear this thing down. There's so much meat. There's so much stuff that's in here. And just these few words that John gives us. And we're going to break some things down, but we're not going to spend our entire time on it. But we could really do a deep dive into this and probably spend a few weeks just on this one passage, all right? But today, the first thing that I want us to note is that the Word here, when he says the Word became flesh, this is talking about Jesus. This is Jesus. And now I know some of you are probably doing a happy dance on the inside because you're thinking that, hey, we're going to be talking about Jesus as the reason for the season. Right? I refuse to say that. I guess I actually did say that. Jesus is the reason. Yeah, I guess I did say it. But we're not going to deal with how Jesus is the reason of the season, how humans have secularized Christmas. We're not going to dig in on that. We're not going to talk about all that stuff, how we should just be celebrating the birth of Jesus this time of year. While that may be the truth, and while that may be what we should focus on, we've got some other things that we need to deal with, some other things that we need to dig in on. And for us to fully understand this opening from John in this verse, we have to go back to the beginning of his letter, which I didn't provide for you, but I would encourage you in your spare time this week to go back and just maybe even just read through the whole book of John. It's really great. But it starts out with the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and through Him everything that was created is created. Like here's Jesus. Here's Jesus, who we identify as the Word. And John opens up and he says, hey, in the beginning, with God, at creation, was the Word. It was the Word. So Jesus was there. Jesus was with God from the very beginning. Jesus was the Word. And the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And this is the foundation for our faith. This is what we believe. At the core of Christianity is that Jesus exists eternally, right? That He is deity, and that He is eternal. And John makes this very clear. He was with God. He was God. The term that he uses here, the term he uses here is logos, which is of God. But the thing that I want us to kind of think about here today in this brief moment, and this is a word that I've kind of thrown out to you guys before, it's homoousiosis. I never can say it. Like I can say it every time when I'm practicing it, but when I get in, it's like stage fright. I don't know what it is. Homoousios. Homoousios. And homoousios, this came out of the Nicene Creed. This is when the Nicene Council was pulled together. They were trying to get through this whole thing of Jesus was the begotten Son of God. And in their conversations, they came up with this phrase, and it's homoousios. And it means of the same substance. Of the same substance. And so when we say Jesus was God and He was there at the beginning and He was with God, and then as we kind of dig into other passages and we start talking about the ministry of the Holy Spirit, homoousios. They're the same. They're the same substance. It is three beings existing as one. They're the same substance. And again, this is the foundation of our faith. This is a big deal for us, right? And this is how John starts out his letter, and then it's repeated. Here in verse 14, he says, here is God represented as the Son. God represented as the Son, the same substance as the Father. The same substance as the Father is Jesus. And John notes that through Jesus all things were created, and he tells us that now, in verse 14 he says, and He came and dwelt among us. Which points us to the fact that Jesus was also a man. Jesus was also a man. See, I told you, we could spend a whole lot of time on this one thing. We could dig so deep into this, it would put us all to sleep. But today, we're looking at this, and Jesus was deity, He was eternal. And John said, He took on flesh. He had skin. He was just like the rest of us. He was walking around. He was a man. And you see, God saw the thing that we needed most. And that first Christmas, and the message of every Christmas beyond, is that God gave us the most needed thing. He gave us the thing that we need, that we don't always put on our list. He gave it to us through Jesus Christ, through His Son. And as we continue through in this passage, you see that John goes into describing the Son of God. And you've got the full passage there below. I won't read the whole thing, but he says, we observed his glory. We observed his glory. John says, Jesus showed up in skin. He looked just like us. He was a human just like us. But he was unlike us. He was so very different. We observed his glory. We observed his glory. Here's John sharing a personal experience. He's sharing what the guys around him experienced with Jesus. We observed him, and there was something different. We observed his glory. There was something. He was just like us, but yet he was so very different. As we got to know him, we saw that he wasn't just like us. He walked around like us. He talked like us. But we saw his glory. It's only the glory that comes from God. It's the glory of God that was resonating off of him in his life, through his ministry. And then John, a little bit further down, gives us this other description of Jesus. He says, Jesus was full of grace and truth. Grace and truth. And see, this was a radical idea in John's day, because the Jews had the law, right? This is who John's walking around. He's hanging out with the Jews, and they had the law, and they had the prophets, and so they knew that there was something coming. They knew that there was a Messiah coming. They knew that there was a Savior, but their idea of what this was going to be like was an enforcer. Right? It was a conqueror. It was more of a military thing. They're thinking, okay, so we're going to have somebody who's going to show up, and they're going to set up the kingdom of God here, and their idea is so a kingdom that looks like this. We're going to reign and we're going to rule, and it comes with force and it comes with power. John says Jesus was full of grace and truth. This was a radical idea to the Jews. They didn't understand grace. They only had the truth side of it. They were looking at the law. They expected the Messiah to come and enforce the law. They were checking the boxes every single day. Hey, we didn't do this, we didn't do this, and we stayed within this guideline. Like they were looking at things differently. John says Jesus was full of grace and truth. And this really kind of indicates the most needed missing thing is grace. The most needed missing thing is grace. Jesus came, he was full of grace and truth. What our world is missing, what some of us are missing, is just grace. Grace in our lives. Grace overflowing out of our lives. Now let's think about what the world looks like without grace, right? So grievances flourish without grace. Greed grows without grace. Broken relationships abound without grace. So when we don't have grace in our lives, when we don't have grace consuming us and outflowing from us, we just live in a world full of grief and grumbling. We live in a world that is full of grief and grumbling. If you don't believe me, get on social media. It doesn't take very far until you get to somebody griping about something. Right? And I don't know why we feel like we have the right to get on social media and just blast everybody. It's like, like we have the right for that. Like, just grumbling. Without grace, we have grief and grumbling. We need grace. We need grace with each other, but we need grace to be reconciled with God. We need grace to be reconciled with God. And if Jesus came, if he just showed up in truth, then there would have only been justice. There would have only been punishment. It would have been consequences for breaking the law. They had the law. They knew what the law was. And if Jesus had shown up just to execute in truth, to operate in truth, all you have to say is, here are the laws. You broke them. turn around, bend over, grab your ankles, you're going to get spanked. Right? This is how it's going to be. We would experience punishment if he only came in truth. But he came in grace and truth. They're listed here together. You see, the truth only allows for obedience or disobedience. It only leads to condemnation and guilt. If we're functioning exclusively in truth, it only moves us towards condemnation and guilt. And at the end of the day, we're unable to fulfill the law, right? We're not able to do it. Broke the law on the way over here, right? I did, because I was late. We fail. We fail all the time. We fall short. We need that grace. We need that grace. We need to have grace with each other, but we need that grace. We need that grace to be extended through Jesus Christ, just so that we can be reconciled to our Creator, so we may enter into an eternal relationship with God the Father through the Son. Now let's not take this to extremes, because we see that Jesus not only came in grace, but he also came in truth. The grace is applied, but the truth is not denied. He applies the grace to us, but there's still truth. Jesus shows grace, but he says, go and sin no more. He addresses the problem, but he shows grace. And even in our world today, like we've talked about our consequences. We've talked about our circumstances being an invitation and what our consequences look like. And maybe our bad situation is punishment. Maybe it's God's inviting us to repent and turn from something that we're doing that is bad for us, something that goes against his desire, his best for us. But for our purposes today, we need to understand that Jesus came full of grace and truth. Warren Wiersbe says, if God dealt with us only according to truth, none of us would survive. But he deals with us on the basis of grace and truth. Jesus Christ in his life, death, and resurrection met all the demands of the law. Now God is free to share fullness of grace with those who trust Christ. Grace without truth would be deceitful, and truth without grace would be condemning. Truth without grace would be condemning. John, he digs deeper into this in verse 16, and he says, indeed, we have all received grace upon grace from his fullness. Indeed, we have all received grace upon grace from his fullness. Now, I want you guys to take a second here and just underline that grace upon grace. I don't know if it jumps out to you, but when I read this, I was studying on this, that phrase just that just kept coming out. It's like grace upon grace. Grace upon grace. What does that mean? What does that look like? We have received grace upon grace, meaning we're imperfect people. We mess up every single day. Every day we do something that separates us from the glory and holiness of God. And our sin separates us from him, but God, through Jesus, gives us grace. Grace for each and every occurrence of our sin. He gives us grace. He gives us this gift that we need, that we don't necessarily always feel like we want. It doesn't make our wish list, but is the thing that we most need. And that grace upon grace, it means that grace will follow in a never-ending flow. Grace will follow in a never-ending flow. For those of us who submit our lives to Christ, who fall into his arms and who submit ourselves to him, grace will follow in a never-ending flow. This is the most needed gift. God has given it to us. God has given it to us. Grace hasn't made the wish list for most people. The world functions pretty much gracelessly, right? As you head out into the world, especially this time of year, people are horn happy these days, right? I mean, it's like there's horn blowing. Like, I don't even know what y'all are blowing at. Like, there's nothing going on. Like, y'all are just crazy. There's no grace. We're standing in line. Whoever shops in stores anymore, brick and mortar. But you go and you're standing there. I know. But you're standing there and you're waiting to get the one thing that was, we talked about the fine print, right? You're waiting to get the one thing that was advertised at like next to nothing, and you get there, and they just, like the person in front of you just got the last one. And what do you see? You see people like blow up, right? There's no grace. There's no grace. We get aggravated with the people around us. We get aggravated at the cashiers not checking us out fast enough. We get aggravated that because the cashier sold the person on the whole 10% off. If you open up a credit card, we got to stand there and wait for them to apply for the credit card, and then it just turns into the whole big thing, and we're just like, ah! There's no grace. There's no grace. It hasn't made our wish list. And yet, God has given us the only gift that we really need. He's given us grace. Grace. Through Jesus Christ, He has given us grace. So what do we do with this? What do we do with this? First thing, we need to recognize that we need His grace. It needs to be on our need list. It should be on our wish list, but it definitely needs to be on our need list. We need His grace. We need it. We're sinful people. We need grace. We need to recognize that we're not worthy of His grace. We're not worthy of His grace. We are sinful. We are separated from Him because of our sin nature. We're not worthy of it. When we recognize that we're not worthy of it, we start thinking about, okay, well, how do I get it? We need to recognize that we can't earn it. We can't earn His grace. Grace isn't grace if you can earn it. That's a transactional deal. Grace is given when you don't deserve it. Grace shows up in situations where you can't acquire it on your own. You don't have the ability, you don't have the power to acquire it. We need to recognize that He freely offers His grace. He freely offers His grace. Grace upon grace. Through His fullness, grace upon grace. He offers it. He offers it to everybody. He offers it to the entire world. To the people who are blowing their horns, to the people who are cussing out the cashiers, He offers His grace. He freely offers it. We need to recognize that we must accept His grace. We have to accept His grace. God gives us His grace in spite of our unworthiness. He offers it to us free of charge. It is the greatest gift. It is the greatest gift that could ever be given. It is His grace. And see, it's only after we accept His grace that it starts to change us and transform us, and we start seeing things a little bit differently, and then we're able to actually extend that grace to others. We have to accept grace. We have to accept it before we can start giving it out to those around us. Our bottom line today is at Christmas, God gave us what we deserved least and needed most. His grace. His grace. It's the thing that we need the most. It's the thing that should top our wish list. And not just at Christmas, but every day. It should be atop our list every single day. God, thank you for your grace. God, give me your grace today because I need to function in your grace. We didn't deserve it. We don't deserve it. But we need it. And He's provided it. He's provided it through Jesus Christ. Jesus, who is of the same substance as God the Father, who is of the same substance as the Holy Spirit. The three individuals operating as one entity, as one being, of the same substance. God gave us His grace. Jesus took on flesh. He put on skin. He walked around in bones to give us this grace, to extend to us the greatest gift that we need. It's the missing gift. It's the missing thing that everybody's missing. They need it. We need it. We need to recognize that God offers it, and that all we need to do is accept it.